Very good morning to all. Today, we are going to discuss measurement of gross ecosystem products. And this is a tool for sustainable economic development. In 1992, during Earth Summit, the world community proclaimed and advocated for sustainable economic development model. According to Vedantic philosophy, or say Indian philosophy, sustainability is deep rooted in our culture. And as rightly said in Isa Upanishad, as it explains Isa Vashamidam Sarvam, Yat Kinchat Jagatyam Jagat. Ten Taktena Bhujithama Gartha Kashyap Sridhanam. It means all this is for habitation by the Lord. Whatsoever is the individual universe of movement in the universal motion. By that renounced thou shouldst enjoy the lust, not after any man's position. One should fulfill his or her need, but not greed. A famous philosopher and thinker has said that we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrowed it from our children. And during the discussion, we will cover sustainable economic well-being, GDP measurement parameters, Human Development Index, Happiness Index, Gross National Product, and finally, we will discuss valuation methods of ecosystem products. Ecosystem products includes services and goods. United Nations, the countries under United Nations also discussed in its parties meetings during different conferences. During COP26 in Glasgow, Scotland, it concluded with a note to achieve something meaningful by 2030 and 2050. The whole world is reeling from COVID-19 pandemic, which is a symbol of global warming and infectious disease. COP21, we all know, and it is known for Paris Agreement. And COP15, COP9, and during 2009 Copenhagen, a corpus was also discussed to be prepared to manage, to meet the challenges being posed by natural disaster before the developing countries, third world nations. Indian governance and Indian model of economic development is very clear. While attaining Industry 4.0, it is proclaimed by the government that we have to ensure zero defect and zero effect. Zero defect means quality of product. Whatever we are producing should be of high quality, without no damage or minimal loss to the environmental components. As per concerned environmental management system, there have been several standards being applied and in practice to be followed by, it is mandatory to follow those standard practices which are commonly and popularly known as ISO certifications. The ISO 14000 series of standards was introduced in 1996 by International Organization for Standardization and revised in 2015. ISO 14001 specification of environmental management systems. 14004 is about guideline of standards. 14010 to 14015 are related to environmental auditing related activities. 20 to 24 are related to environmental labeling. Then we have environmental performance evaluation under 14031 and 32. And similarly, several other provisions are also there. 14050 talks about terms and definitions related to environmental issues. In 2015, World Community under UN identified 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And it was also decided to achieve those targets by next 15 years. These 17 Sustainable Development Goals include no poverty, poverty-less society is the first Sustainable Development Goal, followed by zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education. Education and health are important components when we talk of Human Development Index. Gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation and infrastructure. And how to reduce inequality in the society. So reduced inequality, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institutions, partnerships for the goals. So these 17 Sustainable Development Goals are now practiced globally, and all the nations are making policies, particularly industrial policy, economic development policies. So in this era, we can say that most of the nations are having sustainable economic development model as far concern their development model, particularly in relation or in context of economic development. So this can be easily understood, can be easily explained with the help of this diagram, that how it is going to affect life on this planet of Earth. So no doubt it is very, very important to achieve those goals within a time frame. And this requires collective wisdom at global level. Because as far concerned, environmental values and economy activities, these both are borderless in this changed scenario because of technological advancements and because of WTO. So all of us, or all world community should come forward, and we have to take massive action and measures to achieve those sustainable development goals. Because nature, knowledge and market requires to have a proper coordination. We know the development model and the model which is most sustainable or can be practiced globally is developed by William Nordhaus, who has been conferred Nobel Prize in the field of economics for his ecological economics, for his contribution in the field. And he proclaimed that the problem is those who produce the emissions and they don't pay for that privilege, and those who are harmed are not compensated. Two economists in the year 2018 were conferred with Nobel Prize. The another economist is Paul M. Romer, whose idea is to achieve the growth while limiting environmental costs. Costanza also in 1997 explained that human life heavily depends on the services provided by nature and which are available in the nature free of cost. Climate change, human activity has contributed to the rapid increases in average global temperatures over the last 100 years. And the model which is developed by Nordhaus is known as a regional integrated climate economy, RICE, and later on it was simplified with DICE, Dynamic Integrated Climate Economy, and integrated assessment models. So in 1992 and 94, these are the models developed by William Nordhaus and his team. Economy is not to ensure or not to have more GDP or per capita income. It is something else as defined by several economists. Economists including Marshall, 1893, Hicks, 39, Pigou, they relate the sustainable economic well-being directly or indirectly to the level of satisfaction of an individual, for which economic welfare represents the level of satisfaction from the consumption of goods and services. Dayton 2018 and Clouter and Pfeiffer 2015, they also developed a measurement of well-being, which includes goods as economic activity. Welfare does not translate into consumption or economic growth, but it is related to the quality of life. So quality of life is very important as described by Stovsky in 1976. Welfare depends on employment, income distribution, working conditions, people's free time, production and environment. This is given by Jackson, by Marx in 1996, Daly and Cobb in 93, and Hutting in 2011. All the economists, according to their time and space, they try to explain the basic component of economic development. GDP, which we generally and popularly is practiced by almost of the nations to measure growth and development of their economies. It represents the total monetary value of all the final goods and services. If you want to define GDP, we can easily explain it that it is the total monetary value of all final goods and services produced and sold on the market within a country during a period of typically 1 year or period of time, whatever is given. And India is one of the fastest growing economy of the world. Before pandemic, it was one of the fastest growing, and after pandemic also, it is one of the fastest growing. And in terms of GDP position, it is sixth largest economy of the world, and shortly it will be the fifth one. In terms of purchasing power parity, we are third largest country of the world, and if we consider the population size, we are the second nation. second highly populous country. And shortly, we will be ahead of China. And that can be taken as a positive note because we have demographic divide. So manpower, human resource is very, very important component for development of a country. If we look into sector-wise contribution, then it is very clear that majority of the population in India still depends on primary sector, which is related to agriculture activities, which includes forestry, fishing, mining, etc. with agriculture. Then the second sector is manufacturing or industry sector, and the last is services. 75 years back, most of the contribution to GDP was from agriculture sector, was from primary sector. But today, services are contributing in large number. The highest contribution is coming from services, but the manpower engaged in services sector are very less. And industry and manufacturing sector is stable, which it requires a kind of insulation, which requires to boost up, because services are very fragile in nature, and that we have seen during COVID-19 pandemic, when almost all the services were disrupted due to lockdown. So economy cannot made dependent on this fragile sector. Sri Lanka is the example of highly dependent nation on services, which collapsed. Sri Lanka's economy was badly affected. So for permanency and stability of the economy, it is very, very important to give space and to boost secondary sector, that is industry and manufacturing. GDP measurement is based on consumption, investment, and government spending, and balance between export and imports. GDP is equal to C, means consumption plus investment plus government spending and plus trade balance between export and imports. If we look into Indian context from economic journey point of view, starting from 1947 to 1991, then 1991 to 2021, and from 2021 to next 2051, we can clearly categorize our economies into three phases. Before 91, it was license Raj. Protectionist economic policies were in practice, with extensive state intervention. Economic regulations were in practice, and this regime is now known as license Raj. After 1991 crisis, we have signed a GATT, General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, and this economy reform is popularly known as LPG era: liberalization, privatization, and globalization. And after 30 years journey from 91 to 2021, one can easily compare that before 91 there was a scarcity of goods, in consumer market. But today, after 30 years journey under this new economy regime, we have sufficiency. Anybody, if we want to have a product, whether it is related to electronic product or it is an automobile product, it is readily and easily available. But before 1991, it was not so easy task. It requires advance booking, and there was a huge queue from booking to delivery. Generally, it was 7, 8, 9 years waiting time. But today it is not there, because from scarcity to sufficiency, we have traveled. Now there is surplus in consumer market with respect to all kind of consumer goods and services. For next 30 years, we need equitable prosperity by 2051. We need good health for all, good education, affordable housing, environmental safety, and overall happiness for all. So, next 30 years, starting from 2021 to 51, policies needs to be framed considering the bottom of the pyramid in the mind. It should be people-centric. It should be marginalized society-centric policies. Then only we can achieve the target of equitable prosperity by 2051. As I have already mentioned, different parameters. One method of GDP measurement is already discussed, and there are several other methods. Expenditure method includes consumption, investment, government spendings, and then net export. Income measurement. Income method is based on wages, a rental rate on capital, and firm profits. Then we have production methods based on final value of all goods and services. So GDP, when it came into practice, it was criticized with its inception because it does not provide clear picture of social development, social progress. Appropriate method should not only focus on economic performances but also on happiness, income distribution, environmental externalities, and natural resources depletion, as suggested by Ben Den. Good morning. Yesterday we have discussed GDP measurement parameters. Today we are going to discuss other economic measures. The first one is Human Development Index. Human Development Index is scored using indicators including expectancy, per capita income, and education. As per concern SDI, our rank of India is 132. So it is not very good, as we can say. Three parameters which are used to measure Human Development Index includes education level, life expectancy, obviously it includes health and well-being also, and per capita income. Life expectancy to assess a long and healthy life. Expected years of schooling in terms of education to assess and access to knowledge of young generation. Average years of schooling, and gross national income in terms of per capita living of standard. The human development concept was pioneered by a Pakistani economist, Mehboob ul Haq. Dr. Haq's research, along with economist and Nobel Prize winner, an economist of Indian origin, Dr. Amartya Sen's work on human capabilities and other contributions, led to the Human Development Index. HDI first used in 1990, Human Development Report published by United Nations Development Program. And this is the flowchart of HDI measurement, dimensions, indicators, and dimension index. Long and healthy life, life expectancy at birth, life expectancy index, knowledge domain, expected years of schooling, mean years of schooling, education index, a decent standard of living, gross national income, per capita purchasing power parity, and gross national income index, and these all contributes to Human Development Index. So if the education is good, society is healthy, and they are having good living standard because their income is high. So they are in a position to consume nutritious food and lead a happy and healthy life. Obviously, the SDI index will go high. Then another measurement is happiness index. Gross happiness index. The phrase gross national happiness was first coined by the fourth king of Bhutan, King Zigme Singme Wangchuk, in 1972. Happiness index includes economic security, quality of life, quality of work, quality of consumption, leisure time, relationships, environment, and freedom and control. And participants are required to measure on a scale ranging from 1 to 10. It includes political freedom, healthcare, and education also. Every year on 20th March, World Happiness Day is being observed, is being celebrated. The United Nations started to celebrate the International Day of Happiness in 2013. But a resolution for the same was passed in July 2012. Top 10 countries, happiest countries of the world are Finland, Iceland, Denmark, Switzerland, Netherlands, Sweden, Germany, Norway, New Zealand, Australia. India is at 126th position. So we have to improve happiness level, and we have to improve Human Development Index. Gross National Product. GNP is the total value of all finished goods and services produced by a country's citizen in a given financial year, irrespective of their location. Gross national product is the same, but includes the value of all services produced at home and abroad. For example, a country such as Ghana will have a relatively similar GDP to its GNP because it does not have any or many companies which produce things abroad. Most production takes place within Ghana in comparison to America, on the other hand, which is where many transnational corporations are based. And obviously, its GNP will be higher than GDP. If we think of McDonald's or other several multinational corporations of US, then their GDP, because they are operated overseas. So overseas operations of a business concern can contribute to its GNP. Gross national income, gross domestic product, if we add additional income and self-employed people pay themselves plus income received from abroad, it will be known as gross national income. Developing countries who don't produce much but have large diasporas or populations living permanently abroad, so they are contributing to GNI. Huge population size, a big population size, working outside, and the remittance that a country receives, it also known as, and it helps to increase GNI. Other development parameters of an economy are per capita income, per capita consumption, physical quality life index and human development index, industrial progress, capital formation. Per capita income or total income, it measures the average income earned per person in a given area, city-wise, region or country, etc., in a specified year or time. Per capita income is national income divided by population size. Similarly, per capita consumption is the yearly use of goods and services by each person, derived by dividing the quantity of goods and services used by the total population. Consumption is usually split between private consumption and government consumption. Physical quality of life index is developed in mid-70s by David Morris. Physical quality of life index is an attempt to measure the quality of life or well-being of a country. The value is the average of three statistics: basic literacy rate, infant mortality, and life expectancy. At age 1, all equally weighted on a 0 to 100 scale. So three basic parameters to measure physical quality: life expectancy index. First, we have to find percentage of population that is literate and which is known as literacy rate. Then second is to find the infant mortality rate out of 1000 births. So indexed infant mortality rate, formula is available: 166 minus infant mortality into 0.625. Then we have to find life expectancy indexed. Life expectancy is equal to life expectancy minus 42 into 2.7, and easily we can find physical quality of life if it is divided by 3. So literacy rate plus indexed infant mortality rate plus indexed life expectancy divided by 3, its average, then it will be physical quality of life. Different parameters of capital formation, because capital is the lifeblood of any organization. So capital formation is the net capital accumulation during an accounting period for a particular country. It is net investment used in national accounts, statistics, econometrics, and macroeconomics. A very good morning to all. Today, we are going to discuss relationship between climate and economy. This is for environmental problems, which is deeply rooted in natural science. Climate change science and policy involve a wide variety of disciplines such as atmospheric chemistry, climate science, ecology, economics, political science, game theory, and international law. Economics is the study of human behavior, with regard to the satisfaction of human needs, wants from scarce resources as defined by Robbins in 1932. And human goals are categorized into three major categories by Robbins in 1932. And these three major categories includes spiritual enlightenment, aesthetic pleasure, and production of some marketed commodity. So first is spiritual enlightenment, then aesthetic pleasure, and then we have marketed commodities. The relationship between economic growth, which leads to carbon emission, raising level of carbon concentrations, which leads to other changes in the atmosphere and the environment, which poses several challenges in terms of climate changes, ecological challenges, and ultimately it is having great impact on whole ecology. The climate change policies, reduce emissions, how to reduce carbon taxes, trade related policies, regulations. So there should be proper coordination and interplay between and amongst the factors which are very, very important and responsible for environmental degradation. Human well-being is an outcome of the interaction and relationship. So there is a ecosystem services and goods. If both are included, then it is ecosystem products. So there are several other capitals in terms of social capital, built capital, human capital, natural capital, and its interaction. Natural capital provides ecosystem services which are available in the nature freely, free of cost. So a proper coordination, if maintained, balance is maintained, then human being and human society will enjoy, and that will be known as human well-being. There are several types of models which helps us to achieve sustainable development goals and to ensure sustainable society on this beautiful planet of Earth. We need ecological, economic parameters, and we have to develop some parks, production and utilization of resources is very important, and this all helps to maintain an ecosystem. The valuation of ecosystem services is also very, very important, and then we have to ensure and regulate services related to supply, conditioning, support, and cultural, and the variation of the characteristics, and finally industrial system based on national parks. So all needs to be examined, defined, and well coordinated in the line of environmental values. So direct and indirect effect of carbon emission on our growth can be witnessed with this diagram. We have to ensure green growth and go for green finance. So in every respect, model of industrial development or economic development should be based on environmental values. In 1985, Hanun developed a concept which was derived from ecological economics and is known as gross ecosystem products. Gross ecosystem product is considered as the product and service value that ecosystem provided for human welfare. And economic and social sustainable development, it includes provisioning, regulating, and cultural ecosystem services as defined by Ouyang in 2013. So Hanun developed this concept and its services are explained by Ouyang. Ecosystem services includes ecosystem economy value plays a instrumental role in attaining human goals. So ecosystem services consist of material, energy, information from natural capital, stocks which combined with manufacture and human capital services to produce human welfare. In 2002, Professor Singh and his team also identified several components of ecosystem services and which are known as carbon sequestration, purification of water and air, soil formation and renewal of fertility, regulation of water and nutrient movement from one ecosystem to another, dissipation of wastes and removal of toxins, control over climate, dampening of fluctuations in physical factors of the environment, and providing recreation and scenic beauty. So these are the services as identified in the year 2002. As Ouyang has mentioned, as Robbins has defined human need, human goals. So ecosystem services, what Professor Singh and his team has identified can be categorized into three broad categories. First is material services, the provision of food, water, supply, and so forth can be considered under material services category. Then second, services which are provided by nature and provided by this whole environmental system is regulating services. Under this category, carbon sequestration, flood mitigation, soil retention, standstill, prevention, and so forth, so on can be included. Non-material services includes ecosystem, tourism, ecotourism, natural experience, mental health, and so on. William Nordhaus is working in this area from 1972. He is a scholar of Yale University, and he talked of measure of economic welfare (MEW), which can be used as an alternative to GDP. Measure of economic welfare include an assessment of the value of leisure time and the amount of unpaid work to an economy, hence increasing the welfare value of GDP. And this measure of economic welfare can be seen as sustainable forerunner and sustainable development tool for development of any economy. As developed by Nordhaus and his team, measure of economic welfare includes value of GDP, value of leisure time, value of unpaid work, and we have to reduce environmental damage. So value of GDP plus leisure time plus unpaid work, we have to take gross of it and then reduce environmental damage. Easily we can measure economic welfare. Millennium Ecosystem Assessment. In the year 2000, Secretary General of UN Kofi Annan has proclaimed about Millennium Ecosystem Assessment. And Millennium Ecosystem Assessment talks of four categories, four types of services which are provided by environment, which are provided by the nature. And these four services includes provisioning services, cultural services, supporting services, and fourth one is the regulating services. If you see the earlier one, in case of Oyang or in case of Robbins has talked about spiritual enlightenment, aesthetic pleasure, and consumption of marketable commodity that we are getting from the nature. Here, the supporting services are extra. So all previous studies indicates three basic services which are provided by, and if we include Professor S.P. Singh's ecosystem services, these can be fitted under three or four categories. Kofi Annan and his team, under the leadership of United Nations, they talked of Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, which talks of these four categories of services. Provisioning services includes foods, fibers, fuels, water, biochemical, medicines, pharmaceuticals, and genetic material. Many of these products are directly consumed and are subject to reasonably well-defined property rights. Cultural services include a range of largely non-conjunctive uses of environment. So, which we are not consuming, but we are enjoying, aesthetic pleasure. So that comes under this cultural services. Cultural services includes the spiritual, religious, aesthetic, and inspirational well-being that people derive from the nature. So these are the services. Support service includes soil formation, photosynthesis. These are natural, activities, cannot be controlled by anybody else. Nature itself is maintaining and providing these services. Primary production, nutrient, carbon, and water cycling. Carbon cycling operates at a global scale and is very poorly reflected in any set of prices, although carbon markets are now in development. So at global level, with the help of experts and scientists and academicians and researchers, now carbon market is also in the process of development. This is the last service. Regulating services includes air quality regulation, climate regulation, hydrological regulation, erosion regulation, or soil stabilization, water purification and waste treatment, disease regulation, pest regulation, and natural hazard regulation. The regulating services affect the impact of stresses and shocks to the system. How to have, so four types of services we have discussed, but these services are not included in our economic development model. It is not fitted. So how to go for valuation of ecosystem services, that is very, very important. And the score would be calculated by biophysical measurement score or by the relevant weight for each service. The degradation of ecosystems has resulted in adverse impact on 60% of ecosystems services globally. This is the estimation of Millennium Ecosystem Assessment in the year 2005. The services of ecological systems contribute to human welfare both directly and indirectly. It represents the total economic value of the planet. United Nations Statistical Council has developed a system of environmental economic accounting and experimental ecosystem accounting in the year 2012 to measure ecosystem services. China, with its combination of rapid economic growth alongside escalating threats to its ecological wealth, and is driving innovative work to bring ecological information into decision making. System of environmental economic accounting and experimental ecosystem accounting is used in China to measure their economies, gross ecosystem services. The development of gross ecosystem products within China in pilot projects, including Qinghai province, Zhejiang province, and numerous municipalities and counties across China, and its incorporations into government operations is a promising step in this direction. As the president of Communist Party leader Xi Jinping, while addressing 19th Communist Party National Congress, he said that lucid water and lush mountains are valuable assets. So besides these two, as developed by United Nations Statistical Council, several other measures are available to measure ecosystem services. The first one is Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, MEA. System of Environmental Economic Accounting, SEA, is developed by United Nations Statistical Division, and Experimental Ecosystem Accounting is also developed by United Nations Statistical Council in the year 2012. Then we have System of National Accounting, System of National Accounts, SNE, the Economics of Ecosystems and Biodiversity, Green Gold Index, Genuine Progress Indicator, and Index of Sustainable Economic Welfare. Genuine Progress Indicator, these two we will discuss in detail. Genuine Progress Indicator is a metric that has been suggested to replace or supplement GDP. So GPI is to replace, is an alternative to GDP. Genuine Progress Indicator includes gross GDP with environmental and social elements that impact the economy. So environmental components are included here. So that is why this GPI is an alternative of GDP. How to calculate GPI? GPI is equal to personal consumption with income distribution adjustments, and then we have add capital growth plus unconventional contributions to welfare such as volunteerism, and minus defensive private spending. Then we have to reduce activities that negatively impact social capital. Then we have to reduce cost associated with deterioration of environment and the activities that negatively impact nature. So this is the formula on which basis GPI can be calculated. The second measurement tool is Index of Sustainable Economic Welfare, ISEW. ISEW is a substitute measure for the GDP, and it is developed by Daly and Cobb in 1989. It is an integrated index of economic development composed of several economic items. The Index of Sustainable Economic Welfare is an economic indicator intended to replace the gross domestic product, which is the main macroeconomic indicator of System of National Accounts, SNA, and it is similar to GPI, Genuine Progress Indicator, that we have discussed earlier. Guimaraes 2001, IS defined that ISEW is determined by the components that collect economic social and environmental data. So what is required to measure ISEW includes personal consumption, value of domestic work, non-defensive public expenditure, private defensive expenditure, cost of environmental degradation, degradation of natural capital, and capital adjustment. We can understand the computation formula of ISEW as personal consumption minus losses due to income inequality plus value of domestic work plus non-defensive public expenditure minus private defensive expenditure minus cost of environmental degradation minus depreciation of natural capital and plus capital adjustment. So easily, if this will be in practice and followed by the agencies and authorities while computing ecosystem services, ecosystem products, then easily we can understand the value of environment and value of natural assets. Climate change impact can be seen at large scale globally. According to World Economic Forum report from 2008 to 2018, the people who were displaced because of natural disaster are known as climate refugees, and the number of such refugees are 253 million, more than 253 million. So climate events displaced 10 times more people globally than wars. This is the estimation of World Economic Forum. 3.3 million climate-related displacements occurred in South Asia in 2018, and out of that 3.3 million displacements, 2.7 million belongs to India because of storms, flood, and other earthquake or other kind of landslides, etc., etc., cyclone and climate-related disturbances. So, with the number of displaced people in India and at global level, we can easily conclude and understand the importance of ecosystem products. 1.2 billion people could be displaced by, this is the estimation and prediction we can say, by 2050 due to climate events. In Africa continent, more than 50 countries, 54 countries, they are facing climate distress and they are forced to migrate. Mozambique, Angola, Chad, Tanzania, Kenya, Ethiopia are suffering from ecosystem collapse. There is huge scarcity of drinking water, as sinkage of lakes and water resources are posing great challenge before the human society for their survival. They don't have proper drinking water arrangements, irrigation facilities for their agriculture produce. North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa are highly suffering due to climate crisis. Global climate migration is growing in developing nations and posing the challenges of health, education, and food. And combined efforts will help to achieve collective wisdom and combined efforts under the leadership of United Nations. We can save environment and we can achieve all 17 Sustainable Development Goals if Sustainable Economic Development Model is practiced, which means the valuation of ecosystem products are considered as a tool for economic development. According to World Economic Forum report, 690 million people lives in hunger over the last 5 years. Food production is to be increased by 56 to 60% by 2050. This is also an estimation. Agriculture absorbs 63% of impacts from climate disaster. And to feed the world, a 60% rise in agriculture production is required. So that is also a great challenge because population in one hand is increasing and size of agriculture land is decreasing. So how to improve agriculture produce productivity, how to maintain high pace of agriculture produce is a big challenge. 76% of the world gets most daily nutrition from plants. Scientists predict that by 2050, wheat, corn, rice, soya would lose 10% zinc, 5% iron, 8% protein, and which will cause a major nutrition conflicts. So this is also very, very important, how to maintain nutritious value of the agriculture produce of the products. Experts find regenerative and organic farming model is the solution. So if the organic farming is adapted at mass level globally by most of the nations, then it can also ensure the nutritious value of the produce, of the agriculture produce, and that will help us to ensure healthy society. Industrial agriculture causes 30% damage due to greenhouse gas emissions. So this is also one of the biggest problem. Industrial agriculture causes 80% deforestation across earth. This is also very alarming situation. And these all, figure and data are indicating to understand the importance of nature, importance of environmental values, and also motivating us to follow a development model which is sustainable, which is based on ecosystem products. Industrial farming extracts 70% of fresh water and expected to 85% by 2050. That is why this year, according to as per the suggestion and as per the resolution made by United Nations, is being celebrated or is being observed as Millet Year. So the efforts are under consideration to understand the importance of water, to understand the importance of natural assets. So how we can maintain proper balance between development and economy and ecology. So that is very important. Unsustainable practices are declining Earth's health and nutritional value of plants. So it is also very important how we can have sustainable practices. Organic, natural farming, zero budget natural farming is also one of the components. Organic farming is another component. So how we can go for zero budget natural farming? Nature has provided us free of cost all the resources. We need to maintain it. We need to fulfill our need, not greed. So whole society now needs to be pro-environment, sustainable. And this will be done when we start respecting nature. Climate events impacted on damage of agriculture crops. Storms, droughts, wildfire, floods disrupted supply chains and increased global agri-commodity prices in the year 2020. How we can ensure not to waste food, because 25% of the global society is wasting food products. We have to ensure that food is not to waste it. Economic growth has, if we want to conclude this ecosystem products and ecosystem services valuation mechanism and the alarming position and situation because of disturbance in the nature and climate, which is posing a great challenge before the human society. What measures are really required to be taken? Organic farming, sustainable economic development model, balance between ecology and economy is no doubt very important. But I think zero budget natural farming is also one of the options that can be considered, and capacity building of the farmers in this direction is very, very important. So academicians, scholars, scientists should come forward and they teach the laboratory should reach to the land. We should have a pro-farmer approach where the laboratory should reach to the land where it is to be practiced. So then I think we can achieve sustainable development goals by 2030. Economic growth has often been associated with large environmental damage in the form of pollution and environmental degradation. It needs to be controlled. United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change (IPCC) report is alarming for India, and agriculture may be significantly impacted even by increase in average global temperature. It requires global coordination. Collective wisdom is very important. As this externality, climate change is not limited to national boundary, so it is international. And as suggested by William Nordhaus, that carbon tax is to be imposed on the emitters. Enhance quality of human capital in policy making. Universities and schools are long-run economic trajectory and incubators of ideas can play important role. So can be positive externality. Economy should also be measured on gross economic ecosystem products. So this is the important component, that we have to start measuring contribution of natural resources under GEP, gross ecosystem products. This will help to ensure sustainable economic development. And ISO certification, no doubt, is in place. The certification is optional, but we have to, if it will be made mandatory, then its implementation will definitely help to ensure and to protect environmental values. Climate related capacity building development programs, not only nationwide but in the international arena, should think on this issue. So with this,